Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, may this reading of your word shine brightly in our hearts, in our minds, and through our lives this day and every day. Our New Testament lesson this morning comes from Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, the 12th chapter, beginning at the 4th verse. Now there are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are varieties of services, but the same Lord. And there are varieties of activities, but it is the same God who activates all of them in everyone. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. All these are activated by one and the same Spirit, who allots to each one individually, just as the Spirit chooses. For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For in the one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and we were all made to drink of one Spirit. Indeed, the body does not consist of one member, but of many. Thanks be to God. For in the one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, and we were all made to drink of one Spirit. We are Presbyterians. Individually, and more importantly, together, we are Presbyterians. Now, we got here in different ways. Some of us were born to a Presbyterian family. Others of us came because we liked the music. There was a nice Sunday school for our kids. We had friends that were Presbyterians. There are a myriad of different ways we can come to becoming Presbyterians. For me, my father was a Presbyterian minister. Both of my grandfathers were Presbyterian ministers. And my great-grandfather, Sillers, was a Presbyterian minister. Not sure that I had a choice. It may have been predestination. Who knows? But the world of Presbyterians is changing. Our churches are not the same. They're not the same as they were for my father and for my grandfather. And the world that God has created for us is constantly changing. And the challenge that we face is, how do we adapt to change? How do we take advantage of change? And how do we become renewed by change? Now, for us, it all started with a great change. Because when God sent his Son into the world changed forever. Now, one of the things we share as Presbyterians is our Constitution. It has two parts. One is the Book of Order that gives us all kinds of rules that we're supposed to follow. It also contains the Book of Confessions. The Book of Confessions consists of 12 different historic statements of our faith and what we believe. It's a part of our Constitution, and in many ways the Book of Confessions reflects our history as Christians and as Presbyterians in particular. Now, the oldest and most widely accepted of those statements is the Nicene Creed. It goes back to the year 325, and to me there are a couple of significant things about the Nicene Creed. First of all, it starts with the word we. We believe. That is reflective of our scripture this morning, that we are together as one body. Now, the Nicene Creed came about as a result of a great change, a great societal change. In the years leading up, there had been a huge civil war throughout the Roman Empire. The Emperor Constantine won and became the sole emperor of the entire Roman Empire. Along the way, Constantine adopted Christianity. The world changed. No longer were we the persecuted. We were at the top of the heap and not at the bottom. But there was a problem. It seems that Christians didn't agree on what Christianity was all about. Imagine that, Christians disagree. So the emperor called for a meeting to take place in the city of Nicaea. And he brought together Christian leaders from throughout the empire. Together, they developed the Nicene Creed, a short and simple statement of what we believe. And it has stood the test of time, and today is the most widely accepted statement of Christian belief. It is not only accepted by Presbyterians, but by Episcopalians and Lutherans and all those churches up and down the road here in Orchard Park, and the Catholics, the Eastern Orthodox, evangelical churches. Truly a remarkable achievement and a wonderful example of the kind of renewal that can come about as part of a period of great change. Now, Presbyterianism, as we know it, grew out of the Reformation, and in particular, the Scottish Reformation. This year, we will be celebrating the 500th anniversary of the Reformation. It was 500 years ago in 1517 when Martin Luther nailed his theses to the door of the church in Wittenberg, Germany. But the Reformation could not have happened without modern technological change. Now, I'm not talking about the kind of technology I carry in my pocket and which has changed so many of our lives and frustrates so many of our lives today. But I'm talking about 1500s technology. Because not that long before Luther nailed his theses to the door of the church in Wittenberg, Jonas Gutenberg had invented the printing press. And printing enabled the reformers to spread their ideas far more widely and far more quickly than could have happened just a few years before. And within a few years, Luther's theses had gone through 22 separate editions in Germany alone. And printing enabled new and better ways to spread the word and to spread the ideas of the Reformation. And also importantly, it made the Bible available for all. No longer did you have to go down to your local monastery and wait 3 or 4 years for them to handwrite a Bible for you. You could have it printed. And the Reformation quickly spread across Europe, Northern Europe, and to England and Scotland. And in Scotland, under the leadership of John Knox, the church quickly adopted the new ideas of the Reformers. And over the next few centuries, Scotland and Presbyterianism became almost synonymous. Now, one of the things we share as Presbyterians is a great respect for literacy and education. Literacy is important for us because it's through literacy that we are able to read the Bible and to understand and to learn. And by the end of the 16th century, Scotland required every household to have a Bible. And it's no coincidence that Presbyterian Scotland was the first country to achieve near universal literacy. And today, as Presbyterians, we are still reformed and reforming. And in this rapidly changing world that God has created for us, we need to be acutely aware of the need to always be reforming as we seek a better understanding of God's will and new ways to adjust and adapt to an ever-changing world. Today we face new changes and new challenges. And as a moderator, I have chosen to visit and worship with all the churches of this presbytery. I have visited many churches, many of which are thriving, others of which are struggling. But all of them have in one way or another maintained strength, meaningful worship, and meaningful service within the communities that they serve. And I'm especially happy to be here at Orchard Park, and I want to thank you for providing wonderful January weather for me this morning. But I'm not just here as the moderator. I'm here on behalf of all of your fellow Presbyterians throughout this presbytery. And throughout the presbytery, and indeed throughout the entire denomination, we're facing a difficult time as neighborhoods change, society changes, technology changes. We Presbyterians believe that we are strengthened by what we share. Sharing with the people in our congregation, with our communities, and with our fellow Presbyterians and our Presbyterian neighbors. Now, I'm a preacher's kid, and I learned at an early age a lot about being a Presbyterian, and one of the things I learned was that we have a lot of meetings. There's a story about me that my mother used to like to tell. I don't remember this, but she insisted that it was true, and who am I to doubt my mother? But apparently when I was about 4 or 5 years old, I was in Sunday school. And the Sunday school teacher decided to have some form of pretend church. And so put the preacher's kid up in front of the room and told me to do something like my father would do. So I did. I said, I've got to go to a meeting, and I walked out the door. But as Presbyterians, meetings are important, especially when we participate with open hearts and open minds. They can be an important way of sharing and seeking the guidance of God. It's a way of learning from one another. It's a way that we can seek God's Spirit to be with us. And we Presbyterians firmly believe in shared decision-making. We don't rely on our bishop or our minister to make all the decisions for us. In fact, actually, Dick was only allowed to make a couple of decisions entirely on his own. He can decide what he's going to preach about. He can decide on the hymns. But the rest of it, he needs some authority from the session of this church. And at all levels of our denomination, we share decisions with our lay leaders and the clergy. And this church, like all Presbyterian churches, is governed by its session, who may delegate and rely heavily on Dick, but retaining the final decision. And at higher levels of our denomination, we have equal numbers of clergy and lay people making the decisions. We believe that when we are together, God's Spirit can work through us and within us as we share our thoughts and open our minds to the ideas of others. In our presbytery, we have seen the need to adjust and adapt to this changing world. We've realized that the same old isn't getting the results that we would desire. So we've embarked on a new way to try to find God's will in a 21st century world. And for our presbytery, it began in 2016 with a year of Sabbath, a year of rest and reflection, where we set aside as many non-essential presbytery tasks as we could. And it continues this year in 2017 as we embark upon a year of discernment for the future of our presbytery. We are planning that teams from the presbytery will be visiting all of our churches as part of this process. And we also will be using the branches that were developed during this past year of Sabbath. Our year of Sabbath meant new ways to connect with our fellow Presbyterians, to reflect and seek God's will. Now, we divided the presbytery into regional groupings, and I know some of you have been involved with some of the branches, but we have sought wide participation and are continuing to do so. Now, Jesus told us that he is the vine and we are the branches. And with the branches, we have new opportunities to connect, new opportunities to share with one another, to connect and share with neighboring Presbyterians in our particular part of the presbytery. And as I say, we've sought wide participation. It's a chance to share some fellowship with some other Presbyterians from nearby Presbyterian churches, and to share ideas, because we believe that by sharing our common concerns, our strengths, and our weaknesses with our neighbors, that together we can all become stronger and we can help one another. In the end, this makes us stronger. Now, most of our churches have a few people who attend presbytery meetings or participate in presbytery committees. I know this church has a few more than some of the other churches, but for most of us, we've heard of the presbytery. We're not quite sure what it is or where it is or what it does. Not sure whether it's somewhere near Buffalo or in Louisville or what it is. Now, the short technical answer is that the Presbytery of Western New York is the regional body which governs the churches in Western New York. And its office is in West Seneca. But that's not really what the Presbytery is. The Presbytery is really right here, right now, in this church, and in the pews and in the pulpits of Presbyterian churches throughout Western New York. And it's here every Sunday morning and every day in the week through the lives and work of our fellow Presbyterians. I invite all of you to participate, and I invite you to share with your fellow Presbyterians, not only here in this church, but in the branches and in other ways that you can find throughout our presbytery. Because together we are all Presbyterians.
Thank you, Bob.